introduce a very familiar name and face to us. David Maass is a board-certified maritime lawyer, shareholder at Ollie Maass in Palm Beach, focuses his practice on superyacht transactions, and on and on and on. Take a look at the bio notes on all of our speakers. David, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The second panel we have this morning is on tariffs and the superyacht market. I see one of our panelists. I see two of our panelists. I see all three. Okay, we're good. I'll go ahead and introduce everybody. First, we have Jennifer Diaz, who is the founder and president of Diaz Trade Law. She assists businesses with customs compliance and responding to customs enforcement actions. Then we have Umberto Bonavita from Robert Allen Law, partner of Robert Allen Law, I believe also the president of Robert Allen Law. He advises not only yacht owners, but also builders, dealers, distributors in the US market. And then we have Jay Reynolds, the president of JP Reynolds Company, which is a customs brokerage and freight forwarder. We're going to be talking about how customs have affected our industry and how the industry has responded, the tools that are available to avoid or mitigate the effects of the tariffs. So just to start by way of background, last year on April 2nd, I don't know if you all remember, but that was Liberation Day. That was when President Trump announced that there would be sweeping tariffs on foreign goods. He relied on several different statutory authorities, but for most of the tariffs, he relied on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, and those are the ones that probably affected our industry the most. Those tariffs were challenged in court. In February of this year, the Supreme Court held that the tariffs were not a lawful exercise of the president's power under IEEPA, and the same day, the president used a different statutory authority to impose pretty much the same tariffs. And so we will talk about where we stand now, what the situation is, and again, how people have responded. So we will start with Jen. Jen, do you want to? Oh, clicker. Jen, could you walk us through the tariff decision and where things stand currently?
I will. Hi, everyone. How many have heard about the tariffs? Yay! How many have had tariffs keep them up at night on Friday afternoon? That's when we seem to get the most in terms of decisions on what's going on. It seems to be Friday evening, Jay. I don't know who's behind this, but they have a moment. They have some time to ruin our weekend. So there's so much going on with this, and this is news every day. Keeping up is one of the hardest portions of this. Making sure that you are following somebody that's keeping up with this madness is really essential because it changes second by second. There are times in which I'm giving a presentation on the topic and it's literally changing at that very second. So I consistently say, this is up to date as of right this very second. If anything else changes after we're outside of this room, I am not responsible for that information because this is one of those crazy times where there is news literally second by second. What I thought was incredibly interesting is I pulled census data for yacht imports just up to the subheading 8903. Just for most yachts, this covers motor, no motor sale, and so on. And Mexico was your largest trading partner in 2024 and now in 2026, but Italy beat Mexico in 2025, and I think tariffs had a little something to do with that when you look at the amounts. So when it comes to the actual decision that we were talking about on February 20th, the Supreme Court issued their decision mirroring the lower court's decision, basically saying IEEPA bad. Now, the reason why is because these are all the tools, and this is one of the fun questions is, okay, but there are going to be other tariffs that replace this tariff, and how do I keep up with the tariffs, and which one is it? 301, 232, 122, what are the numbers? What do they mean? How does it all working? So the deal with IEEPA is there has to be an unusual or extraordinary threat to national security. How many of us, I mean, it doesn't even matter because the Supreme Court and all the other courts said not so much because the prerequisite is there has to be a declaration of the national emergency, but there also has to be a consultation with Congress. And that was 100% left out. So what the Supreme Court held going backwards was not so fast, buddy, because within the IEEPA declaration, Under a declared emergency, a president may, and this was the key, in Chief Roberts' opinion, he said there's a 16-word gap. So 16 words is what made this decision, because between regulate and tariffs and like importation and exportation, what you're not going to hear is the word tariff. So what does it say? The president may regulate, direct and compel, nullify, void, prevent, or prohibit any acquisition, holding, withholding, use, transfer, withdrawal, transportation, importation, and exportation. So what the court said was, amongst all of that, if Congress really wanted to give you, the president, the power to impose tariffs, they would have put that word in there. That word isn't in there. That means just because you declared a national emergency doesn't mean you have the power to impose the tariff. Now, here's the one fun part that SCOTUS left out. You know what was in? The dissent talked about refunds, but guess what didn't? The majority opinion. So now, that's the fun part that's going on here. How many of you imported a yacht and paid IEEPA tariffs maybe from Mexico or Italy? Any of you? Because if you did, let me guess, you want your money, honey, right? You want a refund like everybody else. So I'll talk more about what that is, but the fun part for this is what SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, did is they said, the mechanism, IEEPA, was not used properly, can't do so. Okay, we all agree. Lower court said that, appeals court said that, SCOTUS said that. Great. That doesn't mean the refunds are just going to go to your bank account and you just automatically get them. And that's where confusion lies, because there's stuff. If you were the importer of record, you got to do stuff. So now the confusion is Customs has gone on with this plan for refunds. There are 330,000 over importers that paid IEEPA tariffs. Does that sound like a lot? There's $166 billion at issue. Does that sound like a lot? Do you think our government just wants to give that back? No, not at all. What Customs has said is there are 53 million entries at play. And it would take Customs 4.4 million man-hours if they were to manually deal with refunds. Who has that? So what happened is the lower court, it said, is saying, okay, we have the Supreme Court finding IEEPA bad, great, and Supreme Court throw us back down to the lower court, Court of International Trade, and says, Court of International Trade, you deal. A couple of really key points here. One is the president had the ability to request reconsideration from IEEPA bad February 20th decision, right? They didn't do that. Whether or not that was purposeful or not, I don't know. I thought that was super interesting because we expected a little more volatility with the actual SCOTUS decision. SCOTUS decision stands, but now here's the important part for everybody who wants their money, honey. The March 4th court order from the CIT says, here's the deal. Here's the actual lingo, so I could read this to you and you can understand how fun our life is. So Jay and I can relate to this because this is our everyday working world. The order lingo, with respect to any and all unliquidated entries. How many of you know what an unliquidated entry is? The regular public doesn't understand and speak unliquidated entries, but fine. CBP is directed to liquidate without the IEEPA tariffs, but for any liquidated entries where liquidation is not final. How many of you know what liquidation is not final means? Anybody? Yeah, exactly. Which is 90 days after liquidation, shall be reliquidated without IEEPA. But here's the fun part, right? That doesn't take care of all the entries, because now how many of you are monitoring your liquidation schedules, and how many of you post 90 days liquidation have filed a claim or done anything else? And now here's the extra fun part to make a little bit more fun. What has the government said? It is not our position that every single entry and every importer will get a refund. Government said this. Okay, how does this all work together? Well, guess what? The government still gets to appeal the order. It's not over yet. So we have this order and the government has 60 days to go back to say, wait a minute, judge, I'm not happy with how you think liquidated and unliquidated entries should be given refunds. We fully expect that to happen. But if you were the government, would you wait until the 60th day to make everybody's life miserable and make it a Friday afternoon for fun? I think that's what's going to happen if I have my dollar bet. So I'm happy to place bets on the side. We've done a lot of bets because it's either coffee, chocolate, alcohol, or bets or something to keep your sanity in this day and age when things are moving so rapidly. So to answer your question, SCOTUS has said tariffs bad. Customs has said, I have a plan for refunds that I'm happy to talk about because that plan is a proposed plan. I don't want anyone to bank on this proposal because guess what? I expect an appeal. I expect that the government's going to fight and say, if you're not in court, not so fast, honey. I'm not just giving you your money back, and if you're not filing an administrative protest, also not so fast. So just because the government is creating a mechanism to have importers request refunds, this isn't going to be an automatic, you paid it, thanks so much, you're owed it back, thanks so much, here's your refund. This is going to be a hassle and steps for importers to take to demand their money back. And if you don't have the right counsel guiding you every step of the way, like yesterday was the time.
So with the IEEPA tariffs, they've been held unlawful. There's litigation continuing in the lower court, the Court of International Trade, about the process for refunds. In the meantime, as I said, Trump has reimposed tariffs under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. Jen, can you tell us about those tariffs, whether they might be vulnerable to legal challenge, and what happens if they're struck down?
For sure. So obviously there's more litigation, and more litigation. But just to go back, because there were 2 points that I missed that are really, really important. How many of you know about ACE that are importers? And this is where the stats also are really bad. So we have 330,000 people that have paid tariffs, and we only have 21,000 of those 330,000 that are actually prepared to receive refunds as of a couple of weeks ago when CBP filed this declaration. That's bad. So if any of you in this room happen to have paid tariffs, then I beg of you to sign up for ACE and to put in your ACH information. If you have a foreign entity that has paid tariffs, you need a U.S. banking institution in order to accept refunds in ACH. Only 21,000 companies have set that up, okay? So what Customs has said is if you want a refund, the process I'm setting up is the importer has to file the request in ACE, meaning A, you need an ACE account. The importer has to list the entries that are applicable. B, you need to know and not just count on J to make sure, because if you cheat on him, he's not going to know anything else. So don't cheat on J if you're using J, because he can't pull a report for you of all of your other entries. And then make sure you, importer, have a U.S. bank account as well. This is all going to be challenged because we have a lot of foreign clients that have paid, and what? They shouldn't get a refund because they're not in the U.S.? That's fair? All of this is going to be in contention. So now, going back to the appeal process itself, like, by the way, Customs has to give updates every week on the status of they're creating this fancy CAPE system. They're 63% done as of March 19th. March 31st, the next update Customs is going to give about their fancy schmancy portal. Up until then, make sure you get your ACE account, sign up for ACH, make sure you file suit. We're yelling at people to file their own claims. We filed almost 100 claims itself. There are about 3,000 importers in court. I don't know why there aren't hundreds of thousands of importers in court. And the judge obviously says he doesn't want a bunch of court cases because it's inconvenient for him. Too bad. Sorry about your inconvenience, judge, but you want Customs to be overloaded with protests. So 53 million protests makes a better decision than filing claims in court and having court orders to Customs? I don't think so. So we're yelling at people to file claims and to make sure that you are protecting your refunds, because if you're waiting for all of this dust to settle, what you're going to do is give the government what it wants. You're going to time bar yourself out of being able to receive your refunds. So now in terms of other avenues the government has, this is the laundry list of tools. There's a lot of tools. So when 122, right now, 122 is the next tool the government used when IEEPA's gig was up. All right, so IEEPA bad, fine, let's go down the list. 301 is what's popping up next now that 122 is also going through litigation. So 122, what are we supposed to have? A balance of payments deficit. What is it? There's a 15% cap. So there are a lot of threats. No, if you see it on Truth Social, it is not gold. That does not mean it's an actual executive order, a proclamation, and it's legit. It just means it's a threat. Lots of threats on Truth Social. We have to follow that every day. Just because it's threatened doesn't mean it's real. 10%, was threatened to be 15. 15 is the cap. And no, it can't go beyond 150 days without congressional intervention. But what's going to happen? Now you have 22 states that have yelled saying, or 24 states that have filed at the Court of International Trade, and also importers. So what's happening? More litigation. More saying 122, not correct, not being appropriately used. So what is the government doing? They're starting 301 investigations into 60 countries saying there's a forced labor issue. What do you need for 301? Unfair foreign trade practices. What does that sound like? Sure, forced labor. Has anyone heard of the Sweat and Toil app from the Department of Labor? Love the app. Highly recommend you download it. It's free. And it lists every country that has an alleged forced labor issue. There are hundreds of countries on that list. Guess who's not on that list? US. How many of your kids have ever worked in your business? Because Mexico, they have a bunch. 15 different issues with forced labor. Our U.S. government does the investigations. Our U.S. government updates that list every couple of years. How many countries are on that list? A lot. So now we have 60 new countries on a Section 301 alleged new tariff that's going to come up, and that's reviewed every 4 years. Bottom line, are tariffs going away? No. It's just going to get more and more creative, and it's going to be litigated more and more. We have an active 301 lawsuit from 2018 China tariffs. Are those still in existence? Yes. Is that going to the Supreme Court? Probably. This isn't going away. It's just going to get more and more creative. And unfortunately, it's like lawyers that win in this game and importers that don't have the right counsel yelling at them and guiding them into what to pay and what to challenge. You're going to be screwed. So get your right guidance available, because the CIT process for refunds isn't happening overnight. The appeals process is absolutely still ongoing, and more lawsuits will absolutely be taking place, and you're going to have to figure out if you want to get on board for those.
All right, in light of all the turmoil surrounding tariffs, Jay, I'm going to ask you what I hope is a straightforward question. What is the current rate of duty on, let's say, yachts from Italy, the Netherlands, or other countries in the EU?
First, I'd like to ask that my phone number be removed from any of the... I don't want to talk about that stuff. And you're absolutely right. It's always Friday afternoon when this stuff hits. It's amazing. As of 7 o'clock this morning, the duty rate on most yachts, motor yachts, is 1.5%. The assessment, Section 122 assessment, is 10%, with a threat at any time to go to 15%. And then China has an additional 25%. That actually kind of reduced tariffs, especially for the EU, which had a max of 15% already. So it's actually looks a little better right now, but the issue is that the unknowns of what can happen. And I don't, honestly, I feel very sorry for dealers and manufacturers and brokers that are trying to plan for the future, because I don't know how you do that in this market. You know, it's a guessing game. This afternoon, we could get a signature on a piece of paper that changes it from 10 to 15%. And there it is.
And Jay, just to be clear, the Section 122 tariffs, those do stack on top of the 1.5%, so it's a total of 11.5%?
Correct.
Because
Yes.
before the IEPA tariffs, it was just a flat 15.
That's correct for the EU.
But the IEPA is still stacked. Your general rate of duty is at 1.5, and that's on your classifications. You have your general rate of duty. This is a special edition. So no matter what, it's always 1.5 plus.
Okay, and Jay, I just have a question, something I was curious about. What does it look like from your point of view when these things happen, when something appears on Truth Social or on February 20th when the Supreme Court decision was handed down? How quickly do CBP officers in the field respond to that, and what does that look like?
I'm actually kind of impressed at how fast Customs has dealt with this. You know, their notifications are pretty quick to put in writing on Federal Register notice or Customs message systems how they're going to deal with situations like this. And then, the increase, is there going to be kind of a little moratorium effect while this takes place because you already have cargo on the water? you've already purchased it, the cargo's on the water, and now you're going to get hit with the 10%. So Customs has been able to react, I think, pretty impressively about it. It's a battle. One of the things that we're being hit right now with is the idea of the refunds. As soon as IEPA was cut down, I just one phone call after another, one email after another with, from our customers saying, how do I get my money? How do I get my money? How do I? And now I've got to work with those folks and number one, tell them, as Jen says, everything's being challenged. So right now, this is the methodology that looks like it's in place. We're going to file a protest, and you've got to sign up for all these, the ACH account and the ACH account with Customs, which is honestly just a huge hassle. But we've now got to walk our customers through that process just to get them prepared. So the answer is, don't expect a refund anytime soon, but be prepared.
Jay expressed sympathy for dealers and distributors who have to deal with this now. Umberto represents many of those dealers and distributors. Many of these companies used to import foreign-built yachts, typically smaller production boats, from abroad and then hold them in inventory in here, but with the tariffs in place, that's no longer economical. So how are they responding?
You're as busy and nauseous as I am. With all due respect, Jennifer.
Umberto.
Okay. I mean, it was an excellent presentation, and not too many attorneys could have digested and crystallized it as well as you did. But I got nauseous. And the bottom line is, I believe yachts got kind of tidal waved into all of these tariffs and duties, with steel, lumber, automobiles, computer parts, roofing materials. But if you think about it, yachts should be exempt. But they're not. Maybe eventually, and I hope somebody will exempt them. It's something the IYAC should consider in the lobbying. But if you really take a step back, yachts should not be subject to duties. The whole concept of tariffs and duties for Trump to increase it was really two things. We're going to boost manufacturing in the United States, and we're going to increase revenue. It's a tax. Tariff is a tax. So we'll tax luxury goods, and we'll increase the government coffers, and it's great. But that's not how it works. Because at 1.5, 1.6%, which is, back in the normal days, a lot of yacht owners were willing to pay that duty and import the yacht. And the government was seeing a lot of revenue because they were paying the duties. 1.6% of a purchase price, that's not bad. Now they want, well, first it was 17% for a while. Now it's at 11 and change. Nobody's going to pay that. And frankly, nor should they. And yachts are, they're ships. They're movable. They don't stay stationary. So all the things that you would consider that why should somebody import them? And I think in our experience, we'll start with yacht owners, and then to your question, dealers and distributors. I think for every 10 yacht owners, maybe 9 out of 10 right now are not going to import. They're just not. Unfortunately, there are exemptions. And that's actually, Jennifer's PowerPoint, in my opinion, is an excellent paid advertisement for all the foreign shipping registries. Marshall Islands, Jamaica, Cayman, Bahamas, because now they're seeing an uptick in registrations because nobody wants to pay these duties, and fortunately, there are exemptions. And it's actually absurd if you think about it, because I'm seeing yachts in the Great Lakes, with the Marshall Islands flag, Bahamian flag, in the middle of Lake Erie. I mean, it's absurd if you really think about it. And they're able to foreign flag. They're able to renew the cruising permit once a year. So they're not dealing with the refunds. They're not dealing with paying tariffs and duties because they're lawfully exempt. So really, the U.S. government, in my opinion, is losing out. On the dealers that bring in stock inventory, they were really impacted initially. And they had to come up for air. They got socked in the head and said, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And essentially what they did is they looked at excellent brokers like Jay Reynolds and said, what are our options? And what we're seeing really is 3 tools. They're using the foreign trade zone. So some dealers and distributors have actually gone out and applied and gotten their own FTZ, the foreign trade zone, so that they don't have to, they can control their own slips, and they can decide which yachts they want to enter into their FTZ. So you're seeing the entrepreneurs, you're seeing business people and business women react, thinking, and coming up with solutions. And it's become a cat and mouse game where the customs, tries to lay these traps, but the mouse is very adept and flexible. And unfortunately, that's what's happening. So we're seeing free trade zones, the FTZ, the foreign trade zone. We're seeing temporary import bonds that I'm sure Jay can talk to. So dealers are bringing in yachts in inventory, but they're bringing them under a temporary import bond, so they don't have to formally import and declare them and pay the duty. And boat show bonds. So I would say those are the three tools that I'm seeing in the marketplace: FTZs, temporary import bonds, the TIBs, and the boat show bonds. And then on the sales side, you're able to go offshore to Bahamas, for example, and close, change of ownership there, and then come back, and you're not subject to import, the requirement to import, essentially.
All right, Umberto, I'll come back to you in a second, but first I want to give Jay a chance to talk about those three tools that you mentioned, the TIB, the FTZ, and the boat show bond. Each of those has benefits and drawbacks, and so Jay, could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, sure. First, I'd like to say that I absolutely love this industry because these are very unique tools that the rest of the world doesn't have. You can't foreign register your BMW. You can't, you don't have marine free trade zones for other products. It's a very resilient and intuitive industry. And fortunately, we've been in a position, particularly on two of those three things, the boat show bond and the marine free trade zone, to have been part of the planners as far as creating them. We were at the time working with the Marine Industries Association and some attorneys and other folks, and we were on the advisory committee, if you will, of creating those. No. So let's start with TIB first. Temporary importation bond entry. It's very limited. It's in its scope. You only have a certain number of reasons that you can do a temporary importation bond, like a manufacturer sample or repair. The requirement is that you have to put a bond up for double the duty, and the boat has to be exported from the United States. The thing that really kind of negates it, as far as I'm concerned, is that you can't offer the boat for sale, period. So it's not a great tool. It's an okay tool in order to get a boat in here, do the manufacture a new boat, prep it, and get it back out of the country. The issue with the temporary importation bond is that because it's double the duty, when you start getting into larger values on boats, 5 million, 10 million, it becomes very prohibitive cost-wise. The bonding companies aren't really interested in issuing those bonds. The risk is just too much. So they're asking for financials. They're asking for funds up front, collateral. It's not a great tool, but it is a tool. As far as boat show bonds are concerned, I love the boat show bond. We have probably 10 yachts in the show this year on boat show bonds. It allows the boat to go into the show, to be offered for sale to anyone without paying the duty up front. You are posting a bond for double the duty again, but the bonding company so far has been very liberal about issuing those bonds because they have yet to see an infraction. Actually, there's been one infraction of hundreds of, thousands of those bonds being issued. The upside of the boat show bond is that you can show the boat to anybody while it's at a boat show. The boat show bond is only good for 6 months. You're limited to only showing the boat at the boat show. And you can continue to show the boat to potential clients if they visited the boat at the boat show. So you're keeping a log of anybody that's visited the boat, and then because Customs does understand it's not a cash transaction. There's going to be sea trials and surveys and all that kind of stuff that's going to take place